Okay, another video where I'm just going to be talking and there's nothing a whole lot interesting going on. This is about AKC rules and regulations. And again, I think it's a little easier for me to just give you the things that I think are most important. You should read the rulebook at some point in time, but these are kind of the highlights of the rulebook. So I'm going to go through a list. Apologies. The dog must be at least 6 months old before it can enter a test. Doesn't mean you can't start tracking right away. The dog must have useful vision, and this is a funny one because it's up to the judge to decide whether or not the dog has useful vision. Not a vet, not you. The judge determines whether they think the dog has useful vision. The dog must not be lame. And again, this is the judge's discretion, and it's a relatively recent rule. It's caused some controversy because some judges are saying, well, I don't want to. AKC is saying three-legged dogs can participate, or dogs with limping can participate. The judge is supposed to determine if that's the dog's normal gait or not normal gait, and whether the dog is in pain, and make a decision at that point in time on whether or not they can participate. So for you guys, all of your dogs are healthy. It doesn't look like it's something to worry about. The dog can't be taped, stitched, or bandaged in any way. So if you have a foot that got cut, it's got to be able to run the track without a bandage on. There can't be stitches from some kind of an injury. If it has hair over its face, they can have a barrette or something tying it back. So poodles and some of the dogs that you typically see with barrettes in their hair. Most of those dogs don't appear in tracking because the handlers don't want seeds in their coat, which is typical. I don't think in this class we have anyone that needs to worry too much about this, but your dog could wear a coat. If you decided that it was cold and you wanted to keep them warmer, or some people in summer have gotten some of those cooling coats, your dog can wear a coat. The coat has to be underneath the harness. AKC wants to be able to see the harness and how the leash is attached, and make sure that you're not controlling the dog somehow. So they don't want you to put the harness and leash on and put the coat over it so they can't see that attachment. So if you're gonna add a test, you have to ask the judge if the dog can wear the harness, and then they will ask you to put the coat and harness on in the presence of the judge. They can wear a collar. The collar can have ID. So if you're concerned about the dog being out in the field and maybe getting off the harness or something, they can wear a collar with ID. Bitches in season can participate. There's rules in there about notifying the secretary at a test, but if you have a female and she comes in season, it's okay for them to go ahead and enter the test and be tested. At the end of the track, there is an article, and you're happy to go ahead. You can play with that article. You can toss it for the dog gently. Don't make a huge retrieve game out of it, but you can use that as a reward for your dog if the dog finds it rewarding. You can't bring food or other toys with you on the track, but you can use that article as a reward. You can bring water with you. So I mentioned this last week, and I'm going to say it again. It's hot. Get your dog used to drinking water on the track. If you're in a test and you think the dog could use some water, maybe you need some water, you're free to go ahead and both of you take a drink. Your dog must remain on leash at all times when on the tracking field. So if you take them off of the tracking field, if you take them off leash after you've completed your track, they can be flunked and fail the test. They must remain on leash. Doesn't mean you can't transfer the leash from the harness to the collar. They have to be on leash. You can give verbal commands and encouragement to the dog while they're in the field. I think it's usually better to keep your mouth shut, because if you talk to the dog or give them too many commands, they're half listening to you instead of focusing on the track and what they want to do. That said, sometimes you have to give them additional commands. And examples might be your initial start, where you tell them to find it. I don't like to make that a command. If you listen to that video of Zip that I put up before our first class meeting, I just tell him to search. And it's more of a case that that's my word to him to say, you don't have to stay anymore. You can get up and move. Sometimes you might have to tell them wait. So you got the lead triangle, or maybe there's a ditch or something that takes you a little bit longer to get across, or maybe if you're doing urban tracking, there's a car and you need for it to get past, so you could tell them wait and then tell them again to find it. You might tell them leave it if they find something other than the article and you don't want them to have it. You can say gently, good dog. So there are opportunities to talk to the dog and give them additional commands, but in general, keep your mouth shut. You must remain at least 20 feet behind the dog. In the TDU, the urban environment, you can move up to 10 feet, but in the field environment, you must be at least 20 feet behind the dog. Your dogs are not ready, except for Cindy's maybe, Cindy Ziegler, for you to be 20 feet behind your dog. You need to be closer to 6 feet. You cannot guide or restrain your dog, and this is difficult. It's one of those things that it's when you see it, you know it, but it's kind of hard to put it into words. So guiding, this is from AKC's definition. Guiding is behavior by the handler that influences or determines the dog's direction. So I'm saying to you, hold still and only move forward when the dog is pulling straight. And when you're teaching them, that's okay. In a test, if the dog is insistent on going to the left and you know it can't possibly go to the left because there's a cliff or whatever, and you refuse to go, it could be called guiding. It sort of depends on the situation because it is very much situational. Restraining the dog, you can put tension on the line. You can make them pull you, but you can't absolutely 100% refuse to go if the dog says this is where the track is. These are nuanced behaviors, and as we work through the class, I will talk about it with you, with your individual dogs when I see it. There is no time limit in a test. So if your dog is working and searching for the track, and not quitting or not clearly crittering and chasing rabbits or bunnies or pheasants or squirrels or whatever, you are allowed all the time in the world to continue to work and try and get through that track. So that's a nice thing about the sport. There's no time pressure. Your dog can go to the bathroom on the track. It's not ideal because usually that means they aren't focused on the track, particularly if it's a male dog and they're marking. But if they have to pee or they have to poop, that's okay. Just take a deep breath. When they're done, tell them to get busy again and continue on with your track as if nothing happened. Okay. A passing performance. Tracking is pass or fail. The dog either completes the track or they don't. There's no scoring. There's no timing. It's just, did they get to the end of the track? So a passing performance, the dog must follow the track. They can't, if it's a U-shaped track and the wind happens to be blowing so that they catch the air scent of the article, they can't, from the start, if the track goes up, over, and down, they can't go straight this way and get to the article and have a passing performance. They do have to go up, over, and down. But there's no time limit again. You know, it's pass or fail. The dog must indicate or retrieve the article. The rules don't specify what the indication is, and the judge doesn't say to you, how does your dog indicate the article? I like to teach my dog to down because that tells me, one, he has the article, he is actually indicating it, and two, when you get at the advanced level, you know exactly where that article was. So that you know that the track layer was standing there because, well, most of the time you know the track layer was standing there. The article could have blown in urban tracking, or somebody could have picked it up and moved it. But it tells you the track layer was in this vicinity. If the dog brings it to you, you don't know exactly where the article was found. So when you have to tell the dog to continue on because this isn't the end of the track, it's the middle of the track, you're at a little bit of a disadvantage. So that's why I prefer to teach them to down, but that'll be something that we're going to talk about later on. When you find that article, pick it up and wave it in the air so the judges can see that you have the article. All right? The rules say that you have to have it in your possession at the end of the track so that the judge can see it. The judge is not going to pass you if you don't pick it up and say, here, I've got it. At that point in time, they'll start celebrating. If the dog finds something that's not an article, let's say you're doing urban tracking, there's a lot of trash out there, and your dog indicates a glove that your track layer says to you, I didn't put that out there. Pick it up in a test. If the dog indicates something, pick it up. There's no penalty for ending the test with extra articles. There is a penalty for not having all of them, the correct ones. But if you have the correct ones plus 2 or 3 extra, that's okay. In training, what I do if the dog is indicating an article that is not one that was put out by your track layer is I just say that's good and encourage them to continue searching. If they won't leave that article, they're fascinated with it, I'll just pick it up and put it in my bag and then tell them to get busy. But I don't reward them if I know for sure that's not an article that the track layer put down. And so those are just some of the more important things I wanted to talk about. If you have questions about things that are in this video, type them in the Facebook comments so that everybody can see what those questions are and I can answer them. Thanks.